a haven for marine life, peculiar species, and, if you look very carefully, seahorses. This is Europe's largest seagrass bed, and it's under threat. In Arcachon Bay, southwestern France, scientists and citizens have teamed up to save this fragile ecosystem.
If you care about seahorses, you care about their seagrass habitat. It's the first time in France that a marine protected area allows citizens to be directly involved in scientific monitoring.
Every 2 weeks, Christophe recruits a team of volunteers. There's no time to lose. Over the past 2 decades, more than half of the seagrass here has disappeared. Their mission today: measure the seagrass bed and document the types of seahorses living in it.
See the difference between the short and long-snouted seahorse. It's like a pipette on its face.
Nicknamed the Guardians of the Sea, these volunteers are determined to save their favorite fish. Seahorses are indeed a strange type of fish. They can grow extra skin, change color to camouflage. Females don't give birth, males do. And because they're poor swimmers, they cannot migrate elsewhere. After a 45-minute dive, the observers share their experience.
We're lucky we spotted 5 seahorses. We hadn't seen that many in a while.
Seahorses are an emblematic species of Arcachon. It's a shame they're disappearing because of humans.
Armed with cameras, GPS trackers and waterproof pens, the volunteers collect data to fill in what scientists cannot see alone.
This is a seagrass mapping log. Each line shows the start and end of a dive. Thanks to this, we can map the deeper parts of the seagrass beds, the ones satellites can't detect because of the suspended particles in the water.
Murky water caused by currents and waves, but also pollution harmful to seagrass. Keeping a check on it, the environmental police.
A single cigarette butt thrown into the ocean can pollute dozens and dozens of liters of water. And it takes months to break down and disappear.
Littering, but also toxic boat paints, agricultural and industrial runoffs that damage biodiversity.
Alors là, du coup, on arrive dans l'entrée du chenal, ce chenal du Courbeil qui est interdit au mouillage, parce que c'est une zone où il y a beaucoup d'herbiers.
This zone, right by the famous dune of Pilat, is protected. Fishing is allowed for small recreational boats, but anchoring is strictly forbidden.
Chaque ancre de plaisancier.
Every time a leisure boat drops anchor, it damages some of the plants. These are rooted plants, so once they're pulled out, they die. This habitat is crucial for all the species that we're trying to protect in the bay, but it also helps prevent erosion and captures CO2.
Seagrass meadows are actually more efficient than forests on land at storing carbon, and yet across the planet, nearly 30% of them have disappeared, largely due to pollution, urbanization, and harmful fishing methods.
Bonjour messieurs, bonjour. On est la police de l'environnement, vous connaissez la réglementation.
Seagrass grows in shallow water, ideal for anchorage. These fishermen didn't cause any damage. Those found guilty risk up to 2 years in jail and a €150,000 fine.
Le problème, c'est que on est trop nombreux.
The problem is that there's too many of us. There are loads of tourists in the bay, and we're making the most of it too. There's too much pollution, but what can we do? I don't know.
Je sais pas trop, moi.
There is at least one solution.
There's a phone app that shows you where the seagrass is. It's called iNavigation, with all the forbidden areas, the speed limits. Everyone can use it. It's free. You can see where you are in the bay and where the protected zones are.
Once the patrol is over, the eco-agents trade hats, or rather uniforms, for a fully waterproof gear.
I'm putting my wetsuit on. We're going to dive next to a shipwreck called the Quatre Bleus, where we've observed the very last flat oysters in the bay.
Finding flat oysters is like finding a needle in a haystack. Once abundant, they've almost disappeared due to marine heat waves disease and habitat loss. 15 meters deep on the seabed, hidden in a sunken boat. Native European oysters. Unlike their cupped counterparts we eat in the restaurants, flat oysters are more fragile. But they can build reefs, therefore provide more shelter for marine life. Studying their evolution is key. They are powerful ocean cleaners. One flat oyster can filter up to 50 litres of seawater a day. For their research, biologists left a small structure at the bottom of the sea 2 weeks ago. They're now collecting it to see what's changed.
What you can't see with the naked eye, but can definitely spot under the microscope, are the oyster larvae that might have settled. We've had a look around the wreck and actually saw some flat oysters there, so it's possible they're starting to repopulate the area.
Flat oysters and seagrass work in harmony. Both filter the water, store carbon, stabilize the seafloor, and create habitats for marine life.
That report from Alexandre Renard and Aurore Dupuy, who joins me now on the set. Aurore, let's talk more about the seagrass meadows that we saw there in your report. They're one of the least protected ecosystems in the world. Why?
Well, it is a paradox. The world has pledged to protect at least 30% of the ocean by 2030, but we're really far from this target. Less than 3% is effectively protected, according to the Marine Conservation Institute, and it's clearly not enough. Until recently, seagrass beds have been out of sight, out of mind. They're not getting the attention that coral reefs or rainforests do, and that's largely because there's very little data on them, limited mapping and monitoring. And yet, they are a key ally to fight global warming because they are major carbon sinks. According to the latest research, seagrass meadows can store up to 83,000 tons of carbon per square kilometre, compared to only 30,000 in land forests. In fact, seagrass covers a tiny 0.1% of the ocean floor, but they currently store up to 18% of CO2 in the ocean.
Well, tell us a bit more about these carbon sinks. How do they work?
Well, seagrass meadows basically absorb CO2 in their leaves, in their roots, and in the sediment on the seafloor. And that carbon can stay trapped there for hundreds of years. We call it blue carbon. But when the plants are destroyed, the carbon suddenly gets released back into the ocean. And over the last century, we've already lost about 1/3 of seagrass meadows worldwide. That's worrying because restoration is a slow process. It requires time, labour, and of course, resources.
So what's destroying the seagrass the most, and what can we do to help?
Well, the worst are agricultural and industrial runoffs, pollution from fertilizers, toxic chemicals that actually cloud the water and block sunlight that the seagrass needs for photosynthesis. That's basically how they turn light, water, CO2 into food, and as a result release oxygen. Now, wastewater discharge is another issue. Coastal development, the construction of ports, resorts, homes near the shorelines that actually buried the seagrass beds. And last but not least, harmful fishing techniques like bottom trawling, for example, that literally rip up the seabed. Now, the good news is that several European countries are actively trying to restore seagrass meadows. In the UK, for example, which lost more than 90% of its seagrass in the last century, the Welsh government has decided to increase funds to restore 266 hectares of seagrass within the next 5 years. Over there, so far, more than £1 million have been allocated to seagrass restoration. In Scotland and in France, community-based projects to replant seagrass are also emerging. In the Netherlands, the company Sea Ranger Service actually pays young people for marine conservation work. And this week's UN Ocean Conference is indeed addressing seagrass health in its agenda, not just scientifically, but strategically, with discussions on how to boost blue carbon investment.
All right, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on that ocean conference throughout the week here, along with you, Aurore Dupuy, our environment editor here on France 24. Thank you so much. That ocean conference is going on now through June 13th.